Hey y'all, thanks for coming back to my channel and joining me for another outdoor crafting session. I am continuing to work on my baseball cap. I've made a little bit of progress since the last video, and I am currently working on the brim. So before I was working on just like the spiral portion, like the cap portion that goes around in a spiral. But now I'm transitioning to working on just the brim part, which I can describe a little bit more in detail in another video. This one I just want to be, like a crafting space and not really like a tutorial space. Um, but I do want to describe this in a different video at some point. So just be on the lookout for that. Also, just wanted to say to everyone who is watching, thank you for joining and thank you all for subscribing, because I am kind of blown away at everyone, all the love and support that's been in the comment section. So I really, really appreciate that. And I'm just glad that there is a community online for this kind of thing. So it's nice to connect with people that I would not have the chance to connect with other than virtually. So thank you all for being here. And yeah, I actually have really enjoyed reading through the comments and taking suggestions from people. Because, I mean, if you guys are telling me what you'd like to see, then I would like to, move in that direction. So totally open to feedback, constructive feedback. But yeah, I don't really know what kind of vision I have for my YouTube channel. This is one of the things that I thought, like come craft with me, I thought would be nice for just people who don't normally have a fiber arts community to go to. Because luckily I am in a fiber arts group, and we meet up every Sunday, and it's really nice to sit and chat and, get feedback and just to have general community with people who understand. And so I thought it would be fun to come onto YouTube and offer that for people who don't have that. So that's kind of why I'm trying to offer these crochet sessions, because I can be your online buddy and we can crochet together or knit, or you can bring your own craft. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to have fun with it. But yeah, I guess I can give a little bit of a backstory of how I got into fiber arts. So when I was in the 4th grade, there was a 5th grader who came into our class. He had my teacher the previous year, and they were like BFFs, I guess. I guess he was like a teacher's pet. But anyway, he was a knitter. He knew how to knit, and he basically came into my classroom and gave us all, I'm pretty sure, like just regular pencils. So actually, I think my first pair of knitting needles was just a pair of pencils. And we had probably like the cheapest yarn in the world. And just like scraps, And he taught like kind of the basics of like how to cast on, how to do, some other things like that. Just, I think basically just the knit stitch. And so I was like fascinated by it, very, very intrigued by the concept of taking yarn and turning it into something. And I just really like it opens the door to like, you can make your own things and you can be proud of something. And I don't know, even as like a 9-year-old kid, I was just fascinated. So I remember at the time, my mom, she knew how to knit, and she did a couple projects. She never really was like big into knitting. She had like a whole sewing career. So, crafting runs in the family. But anyway, she kind of supplemented what I learned from that 5th grader. And so then that kind of started my journey with knitting and fiber arts in general. But then, my mom wasn't like really a big knitter, so I had to kind of like supplement that even further with YouTube videos. And so actually I learned how to knit from YouTube. It's kind of cool. It's like a full circle moment. Now I am here enjoying fiber arts with all of you. And so then for a while I was pretty into knitting, and I still am. But for the longest time, all of my projects were very simple. I would make scarves or blankets, you know, shapes, not really any pattern ever. I made like a teddy bear when I was a kid, and that's technically a pattern, but you know, for the most part, other than that, it was just like scarves, blankets, and I was like too scared to venture out and try a pattern because I just thought, like, you know, it's going to be too complicated. I'm not going to understand anything, and I kind of counted myself out before I really let myself begin. So it wasn't actually until I joined my current knitting group, which was almost 4 years ago now. When I joined that group, I was still kind of just doing the same thing, like scarves, and I have an Etsy page, and so at the time my Etsy page was just like scarves that I would make because I didn't have any way of channeling my love of creating with anything that I actually like wanted to keep for myself. And like, I liked the scarves that I made, but I mean, you can only have so many scarves, right? So that was like the best thing that I knew how to do, is just like make the scarves and sell them on Etsy. But when I joined my fiber arts group, I saw the amazing things that the people there were making, and I was just like, wow. And the guys in the group like really encouraged me to just go for it, just try making patterns or like following patterns. So my first pattern after I joined the knitting group was actually an emotional support chicken, which sounds kind of crazy, but I'm not sure if it was the pattern designer who came by our group, but somebody who was like really pushing the pattern came to our group, and she gave all of us like a free copy of the chicken pattern. And I was like, you know what? I am gonna practice this, because it turns out I was also knitting the wrong way. Somehow my stitches were all twisted every time I was knitting. And, you know, I'm like a mostly self-taught knitter, other than, you know, obviously my mom and that 5th grader teaching me like very basic foundations. But over the years, I kind of like forgot or mixed things up a little bit. And so I ended up knitting with all of my stitches twisted. And I didn't even know until I went to the group, and then they immediately looked at it and they were like, do you know your stitches are twisted? And I was like, no, I don't even know what that means. And so then I just learned so much about knitting and fiber arts from there. And so then I challenged myself with that chicken pattern. I was like, okay, I'm going to reteach myself how to knit the proper way. And so I did that, and I made my chicken in 3 days. I was like super into it, and that is how I fell in love with following patterns, because I was like, wow, I really doubted myself before I even let myself off the ground. And once I allowed myself to like commit to the challenge of following a pattern, that is when I really started to expand as a fiber artist. So then I like dove deep into the world of patterns and shawls and cardigans. That same year that I made the chicken, I also made a shawl from Stephen West. I made a cardigan, a cabled cardigan. What else did I make? I think I made another shawl that year. I don't know. I got super absorbed in it. And 2 years ago, my knitting group hosted a Learn to Crochet class, and I had kind of dabbled with crochet before, but never really succeeded with it. I just couldn't grasp the concept of it coming from knitting. I was like, I don't understand where the hook goes. I don't understand how to hold the yarn. You know, knitting kind of takes care of a lot of that for you, because the stitches are right there in front of you. They're on the needle, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to, you know, like, it's very rigid. You go from one needle to the next. And with crochet, I feel like it's very free form. You could make anything with crochet. And that, man, if I should put a picture on the screen of the first granny square I ever made. Y'all would think it's hilarious, because I did an awful job. horrible. It's like my tension was all over the place. It just really was not um, good quality at all. But we all start there. We all start somewhere. And so in the last 2 years, my crochet love has really just like grown and proliferated into something that I never would have imagined. If you had told me during that Granny Square class led by my group that I would eventually have my own crochet pattern and be working on a second one right now and be crocheting more than knitting, I would have just probably laughed and been like, there's just no way, because I still don't understand what's going on. Like, even during the class, I was so confused. I had no idea how other people were picking it up so quickly. But I ended up continuing to practice because my group meets up at this cafe. It's an amazing cafe here in LA. It's called Jackson's Cafe. The owner is very nice to us. We go every Sunday, so we all have like such a great rapport, and it's just like a really nice outdoor cafe. So, you know me, I love to craft outside. I like to craft inside too, but outside is also very, very nice. But anyway, he and his wife were having a baby, and we decided as a group that we were going to make a baby blanket. And so we wanted everyone to contribute. The only problem was we decided to make a Granny Square blanket for the baby. And so that's kind of the reason why we had that class on like how to learn crochet. So I was determined to learn because I was like, I want to be a part of, the process. I want my squares to make it into the blanket. And well, y'all, it turns out by the end of that project, I was the one seaming the whole thing together. So I went from barely being able to make a granny square to basically putting the whole blanket together. And so it's just like it advanced so quickly. And then once I really felt like I had a grasp on crochet, then it was over. I made so many things. I made a cactus out of crochet. I made a dinosaur for my husband, like a really big dinosaur, because he's been wanting one, and I was like, I don't think I can knit that, at least not very easily. So I just kind of like dove headfirst into the world of crochet, and I eventually ended up developing my pattern for a hard-brimmed hat, which is, the original pattern is a worsted weight, but I wanted to diversify and continue building my pattern making skills. So that is why I am currently working on this fingering weight hat. So I just think it's just been really cool, as like considering my entire history with fiber arts and where I am now in the journey and the whole process. It's just really nice to sit back and reflect on that and just really appreciate and realize how far I've come from, that little 9-year-old kid who learned to knit with pencils. Well, now I am designing my own crochet patterns and building an online community. So I am just like really, really appreciative of all of that. And it's nice to look back on your journey and think about all the things you've done. I'm sure lots of you have seen that short that I made about the sweater, the steeking sweater. So that I feel like is a huge culmination of all of my time as a fiber artist, because it's not only, one, it's a sweater, which is a huge project. Two, it's Fair Isle, which I had never done Fair Isle before. I was challenging myself with that pattern to just expand, because like I mentioned earlier, I was not doing patterns for a long time, and I was too afraid to try those kinds of techniques because I just didn't want to put the time and energy into it, or I was just too scared. Whatever the reason was, I never challenged myself. So when this pattern came up in the group, I really was excited about it, because I was like, well, I've never made a sweater. I have never done Fair Isle, and I certainly have never done steeking before. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take this challenge head on. And, if I had not been challenging myself over the previous years, I never would have been confident enough to take that pattern on. I would have been like, no, you're crazy. um, so that pattern was like a big, big challenge. Not necessarily the knitting itself. The Fair Isle, I actually really loved. I fell in love with Fair Isle so much. I loved how methodic it was, and like following charts was also something I had never done because I'd never done Fair Isle. So I was very intimidated by the charts. But once I started doing it, I was like, these charts are easy to follow. It's very intuitive, like a lot more intuitive than I thought it would be. I thought I was going to be lost in the sauce, completely confused. But it actually was way easier and way more fun than I thought it would be. So I was very surprised by that. But also, to finish that sweater, I had to learn how to steek, which I learned from this really amazing YouTube tutorial. I think their name is jjones209. She did a very good tutorial. It's called Crocheted Steek, and she was very thorough, and I really, one, it was cool because I was learning from YouTube again, so I felt like a kid again. But it was also like a really nice way to connect with more experienced people in my fiber arts community. And it really made it feel like I'm learning like an ancient craft. I'm kind of getting chills right now. But like, I just felt really cool in that moment learning from her, because I felt like I was learning from like a knitting elder who is like so experienced and wise, and it felt like it was like passing on a tradition. So I think it's really cool that now I can show people my sweater and say like, look, this is part of the grand tradition of knitting, and I'm passing along to you. And I have had so many people comment on that video. Lots of people have said that they've never even heard of it before. So it feels really cool to now, like I said earlier, it's like a full circle moment where I have now become the person who I used to watch as a kid. And I mean, I don't have very many educational videos up yet, but I would like to get more into that. I know lots of people have asked for intro to knitting kind of like online class where I could kind of like film myself knitting and explain all the basics. And I think that that would be really cool. I would love to be able to give back like that and, give people my version of it. So yeah, it's been such a wild ride, but basically the moral of the story is, one, that I love fiber arts, and two, that you should not be afraid to push yourself to try new things, because when you push yourself and give whatever you're trying a real effort, you just never know where it can take you. And for me, I feel like the journey it's like swept me off my feet, and I am just here like full force ahead. Like, I just want to dive into this as like my new YouTube journey and just see where it takes me and see what kind of connections I can build here and what kind of community I can foster. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed that story. I know it's like probably a little bit rambly. I'll just finish this row probably, and then I'll probably have to get back inside. But yeah, fiber arts are just so amazing. If you're watching this and you are not a knitter or a crocheter, I highly recommend taking the time to learn some of those basic skills, because not only are you going to be able to create your own clothing, your own accessories, your own home decor, anything that you want, you will also have a skill that will be with you for life, and you are going to be practicing your own good mental health, because these fiber arts are so, mentally relaxing. There are like so many studies out there that say that knitters and crocheters, when they're like in the zone, you kind of go into like a meditative state. So you're basically meditating while creating something. So I just feel like, what could be better than that? Oh man, y'all, my video cut out while I was crafting and I didn't realize. So it cut off my story a little bit. So I'm very sorry about that. But I was basically just going to say that, you know, if you are watching this and you're not a knitter or crocheter, I would just highly encourage you to pick up a hook or a pair of needles and give it a shot. And, you know, there's no harm in trying and seeing if you like it. If you don't like it, then you can at least say you gave it a shot, you know? But since then, I didn't realize that the video cut off. So since then, I have kept working on my hat here. I finished the first brim. So there's actually 2 crocheted brims that will go into this, and then you'll use this little insert to make this like rigid structure. So I'm gonna keep working on this, and I'm hoping that I can finish this one this weekend. And then I'll be starting another hat. I want to use some of my hand-dyed yarn for it, and just make myself like a nice hat that, you know, it'll be like my hand-dyed yarn, my own pattern. So I think that would be a really nice full circle moment for me and my hats. So that's the next thing I'm going to work on. But after that, I'm going to be switching back to knitting because I am going to be participating in this year's Mystery Knit Along, hosted by Stephen West. It's the Mystery Musicale, so I'm very excited about that. I did last year's Mystery Knit Along, the Go-Go Dynamo shawl, and wow, I am really excited for this year because last year I really fell in love with the project. I had so much fun doing it, and I used it as a challenge for myself because if you're not familiar, he releases clues once a week, and so you don't really know what you're knitting until that pattern, that section of the pattern comes out each week for the month of October. And so last year, it was my first one ever, I was determined to keep up with all the clues like week by week. So I wanted to like make sure that I was done with clue 1 by the time clue 2 came out. So I'm going to be doing the same thing again this year. I think it's going to be a nice, fun challenge for myself. And I mean, I love challenging myself with knitting because it makes it really interesting. Well, and crochet too. I love a good fiber arts challenge. So I'm going to be doing that. And I'm hoping to do like a 4 or 5 part series on my Mystery Knit Along progress here on my channel. So be on the lookout for that. I'm really excited for it. And I hope that you guys are also excited, and if any of you guys are also doing the knit along, I would love to hear what kind of colors you're thinking about. I still need to think about colors. I'm not exactly sure what yarn I want to use yet, so right now I'm thinking maybe like yellow and pink. I don't know. Those are only 2 colors, and I guess we need 4 colors, so if any of you guys, you know, have colors in mind, let me know. I promise I won't steal your color ideas, but I'm just interested to hear what other people are going to be using. So anyway, sorry about the video cutting out, but I hope you enjoyed this crafting session with me, and I hope that you will come back in the future to craft with me again.